evening and welcome to the podcast tonight, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. My name's Matt, and usually you don't get to see my face. Usually you are seeing my hands at work, but tonight I want to talk to you face-to-face or face-to-camera, however you want to look at it, because I want to talk to you about the stages of artistic development. A lot of people make excuses of why they can't draw or why they can't progress any further in their drawing ability. And I'm here to tell you that you can progress in your drawing ability and you can get better. Talent is kind of a weird kind of thing. A lot of people make the excuse that they don't have the talent to get any better, and I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. You see, drawing is a skill that can be learned and developed. In fact, there are stages that you go through. Just like learning how to walk or learning how to talk, you go through different stages. And when it comes to drawing and painting, you go through these stages as well. It's important for artists to understand the stages of artistic development so they can better understand where they've come from and where they're at and where they can progress further from there. A fellow by the name of Dr. Victor Lowenfeld came up with the stages of artistic development. He wrote a book a few years ago, many years ago, called Creative Mental Growth, which set out these stages of artistic development. So tonight, in tonight's podcast, I want to just walk through the stages of artistic development with you so you can better understand where you've come from and where you're at and where you can progress further from there. And during the course of this, we're going to learn a little interesting thing about drawing, or actually drawing representationally. Drawing representationally is actually about seeing things in an abstract way. So let's go ahead and take a look at the stages of artistic development. The first stage of artistic development happens between 2 to 4 years old, or really whenever the child is old enough to pick up any mark-making material. And it's called the scribble stage, and not surprisingly, at this age, the student or the child makes just random marks. And it's more about the feeling that the material makes rubbing across the surface. That's why when you give a child a pencil or pen at this age, they'll write for a few minutes on a piece of paper, then they'll immediately go to the wall or their face or anything else that's laying around because they like the way it feels. Then from there, you move on to the next stage, which is called the pre-schematic stage. And this is generally 4 to 6 years old. And children at this stage of artistic development are beginning to see connections between the shapes that they draw and the actual physical world around them. Circles and lines might describe people or objects that are physically present in the child's life at this time. It's in this stage that a child first makes the connection to communication through their drawings. For example, this is a copy of a drawing that I created when I was 3 years old of me and my dad. There's no torso, there's no arms, just a circle, a couple of circles for the body, a couple of lines for the legs, and one shared arm. The next stage of artistic development happens between the ages of 7 to 9 years old, and this stage is called the schematic stage. And in this stage of artistic development, the children have clearly assigned shapes to objects, and they're attempting to communicate through those shapes. They often have developed a schema for creating drawings. There's a defined order in the development of the drawing as well. Drawings at this stage have a clear separation between the sky and the ground, and there's nothing in between. Often the sky is a strip of blue at the top of the paper, while the ground is a strip of green at the bottom of the paper. Objects are often placed on the ground instead of floating in space, and objects of importance are often drawn larger than objects of lesser importance. So usually the child will draw themselves first on the left-hand side of the image and use basic shapes to make those up, and then draw other people in their life going from the left to the right. There's some ground at the bottom and the sky's at the top, and there's a lot of space in between, and the child really can't make the connection that the sky goes all the way down to the ground. This is the stage in artistic development where you have houses that are kind of drawn with two simple shapes. The windows are pretty standard. The chimney kind of comes out the side of the house with the curly smoke, and of course you have a sun with some light rays that come off of it. This is a really fun stage for drawing. It's a fun stage to look at children's drawing at this age and have them describe the people and things that are inside of those drawings. Students then progress on from there to the next stage, which happens anywhere from 9 to 11. And for some people, they never progress beyond this stage. And this is the stage where you draw a shape like that, and of course that represents a cloud. You can add a couple lines to it and it becomes a tree. Of course, all trees at this stage have to have a gigantic hole in them. And objects are usually sitting right on the line for the ground. You also might draw shapes like this in the background, of course, to represent mountains. And drawings at this stage really have steps to the process. Students at this age want to know how to draw specific things, like how do I draw a sun, how do I draw a cloud, how do I draw birds, and so on. And for some people, they believe that this is as far as their artistic skill will take them. This stage is called the dawning realism because students are starting to make connections between the real life around them and their drawings a little bit more deeply than they have before. But then something happens from this stage to the next stage that really separates the ability to be able to draw representationally or to stay drawing like this for the rest of your life. And for most of us, this is what we want to learn. We want to know, how do we make the step from drawing with steps into drawing anything? And really it's about making a connection that drawing is not necessarily about following a step-by-step process. Instead, drawing is about observation. And what's unique about observation is that when we see things with our eyes, we're actually seeing things in a very abstract manner. We're seeing lines, shapes, and forms, and values. And our mind is putting that information together and telling us, for example, these lines, shapes, forms, and values are showing us a tree. So our mind puts that together. And in order to draw well and draw representationally, we have to kind of reverse the process. We have to tell ourselves we're seeing lines, shapes, forms, and values, and so on. And we're going to put that information on our paper, what we're actually seeing, not necessarily what our mind tells us we are seeing. And when students are able to kind of go backwards and really understand that they're seeing just dark areas and light areas, and they're seeing kind of abstract shapes and forms, and they're able to put that information on their paper in a drawing, that's when you get highly representational drawings. For example, in this tree that I'm drawing here, I'm looking at a photo of a tree, and I'm simplifying what I'm seeing down into basic shapes, forms, and values. I'm putting that information on my paper. I'm not thinking, hey, I'm drawing a tree here. Instead, I'm thinking about the abstract things that I'm actually seeing. And ironically, seeing in an abstract way is actually going to lead you to drawing representationally. So there's no excuse for not being able to draw well. It's not about talent. It's about understanding what you see. For more art lessons like this one, I hope you'll visit thevirtualinstructor.com. And don't forget to like the fan page at facebook.com/thevirtualinstructor.